I still have some styrofoam left over from the printer my work sent me. I made the choke station out of it and decided to continue with that theme. A couple of items from the Emma's townhouse to create a catwalk platform. I think setting them at 2 levels would be good. First up, earplugs, so that as I cut them up, I can drown out one of the more hideous noises in the world, right up there with this. Wire cutters to snip off the snap tabs, and some cutting with an X-Acto knife to smooth out the sides. I pondered creating a single long line catwalk, but I think it'll definitely look much nicer as multi-level. Okay, the taps from boxes of wine, which are tough little buggers, and I really had to lean into them to cut them free. And then slicing up the other section of styrofoam. Again, a hideous noise on par with... For the fueling station, I'm planning on the wine nozzles in a row, with a plastic piece that came as shipping packing for some electronics. I was going to put a spice bottle cap on top, but then found the nozzle from a portable air pump I used to use while camping with my inflatable mattress. I now use a foam one, because it kept getting punctures and I was sick of waking up crippled when it would deflate in the night and I'd wake up on solid rock. For the fuel dump, a few pipes from my trusty bag o' pipes and a skinny fizzy drink can with the cap from a pill bottle on top. Okay, onto the base coat. A generous layer of Elmer's, squirted around and then wiped about with a big soft brush, and then a dusting of baking powder. And then a few more applications to each piece to get the bare patches dealt with. Next up, cutting strips of cardboard and then wrapping them around the pipes so I can cut them to size and glue them onto the pipes to represent reinforcing bands. Snapping an elastic band into place holds the cardboard right there until it dries, allowing me to continue playing with other things. Once dry, some tweezers helped me grab Chenkao half craft beads that I dipped into Elmer's and then glued into place as a ring of rivets around the bands. Onto the storage tanks. A light sanding to the hard seltzer can and then a dab of hot glue to get the pill bottle cap into place. I cut a few popsicle sticks to size and dragged the ends along the sandpaper to get a bevel and then glued them around the can as reinforcing support struts. And then let's get everything non-styrofoam related primed. Jabbing cocktail sticks into a piece of packing material helped hold all of the pipes upright so I can get them from every side and not have to bother doing one side, then sitting around letting it dry before flipping it and doing the other. While all that's drying, Mod Podge and a squirt of black acrylic and a squirt of white, and mix it up and then dab it all over the structures with the big brush. Dabbing adds some texture with an almost stipple appearance. Once dry, let's take a look at how it's coming along. If it looks awful, I can just bin it and stop wasting my time. Okay, looking rather nice. The pipes look good, the platforms look good at this height, and the taps look nice as well. Right, onto the dry brushing. A dab of mithril silver and gentle sweeping dry brush strokes all over to catch the edges and the raised areas. The pipes, the pumps, the platforms, the lot. Now, I could sort of see under the lollipop support struts along the cans, so I decided to mimic a weld line by adding streaks of Elmer's and squeezing it all around the edges to create a nice seal. For the curbs around the platforms, popsicle sticks cut down to size and glued together, and while that dried, I cut out some rectangles of wire mesh and glued them down to the catwalks, letting it hang over the edges so I can trim it to size with scissors when it's dry. A layer of black acrylic on the popsicle sticks, and then more of it along the now dry Elmer's on the storage tank, and then more on the wire mesh. With this stuff dry, a little more dry brushing and all the bits are ready to go. I glued the L pipes into position and then the wine nozzles. By balancing them on containers, I looked at the catwalks and decided to put one level just below the porthole and the other higher up so models can peek over the wall. Now, to add in some accents, I cut a piece of cardboard and painted it black, and started painting some Chenkal craft beads red and green to be status lights. Next up, a nice watery wash of black along the base and along some of the corners to get a slightly dark, rising, damp kind of look. I cut a couple of strips of my small chicken wire, 1 square in width to be ladders to access the various platforms, and another longer strip of chicken wire to be safety fencing. Okay, back to the concrete with a lighter dry brush all over the structures, then a little more white and focusing on the main edges and corners, and then finally the lightest and most delicate dry brushes to corners and other distinct edges. The larger piece of chicken wire was cut with some longer pieces sticking out along one edge so that these could be jammed into the polystyrene and represent posts holding up the fencing. And then a line of staples up the side to act as rebar rungs to access the fenced-in platform. These guys are going to need a base, so I cut some chipboard to size and glued down the styrofoam structures and the cans and the containers. For the fuel station, a few accents definitely seemed in order. The spice bottle cap was adorned with a weird plastic disc with some incuts glued on top and was primed, painted and dry brushed. Also a simple cap with a big half bead glued in the middle, and both were added to the vertical surfaces of the exterior wall. And then gluing the nozzle in place along with a metal rack that used to hold refills for a mechanical eraser from my hand drafting classes. Yeah, because that's going to come in handy again. Watch a solar flare take out all the electrical circuits now, although if that happens, resorting to my hand drafting skills are likely to be the least of my concerns. Anyway, on the other piece, gluing the ladders into position, one to access the lower level, the other to access the upper from there. A blade helped get the beads free, and then I glued them to the cardboard plate. The chipboard beneath the concrete? Well, I painted that black, especially because with the dark wash I applied, it made a nice transition between the two. A little more dry brushing here and there for funsies, and then onto the sand. I painted on the elmers and poured it up where the pipes enter the ground, and then poured on the red rock sand. Once dry, a few more splodges here and there to create different grades, and the application of more sand. Flare time! This one, bullet holes, by using a mechanical pencil to punch lines of holes, and then by twirling a ball point into the hole to create the crater around the deeper penetration of the projectiles. A brush laden with black and plunged into the hole to completely colour in, and then a dab of light grey around the rest of the hole to bring attention to the crater. Okay, progress report. Here we are, the fueling station and the fuel dump coming along nicely. And then, an idea. As you can see, I actually managed to resist doing any hazard stripes anywhere on either of these structures. You know what that resulted in?
Dead things fighting, dead things killing.
That's right, people got killed. So, I pulled up 3 blobs of elmers and added sand so I can start making some graves for the workers who, without nice striking black and yellow strips to tell them what's what, ended up getting demolished because of it. Also, let's pledge some allegiance here. This fueling station is for Imperials only, no Xenos. You need to be at least this human to fill up here. A wooden kebab skewer placed against the terrain so I can see where to cut it down to, and then twirl and drag across the sandpaper to get a nice rounded tip. Afterwards, I glued together 2 half beads to create an orb and glued that atop the flagpole. Holding it with pliers, I painted it black and used a rubber band to keep the pliers gripping so it could dry and I could play with other things. Then, a bit of dry brushing, glue it into position and add one of the leftover flags from the Imperial ruin I previously made, and now that I know, I added a small cardboard band to keep it in position and stop it falling off in transit and during use. I bent it a couple of times over a pen to create ripples because this isn't a hanging flag, it's fluttering in the desert breeze. And lastly, some posters and warning signs, an Imperial proclamation and an inspirational poster. The pipes are carrying drinking water, promethium, and something you really shouldn't drink. And the fueling station, a couple of fuel outlets and 1 inlet, and a sign to make sure the only fuel used here is good old reliable promethium, accept no substitute. And because the mound of sand didn't come out great, I went with a pile of rocks that I glued into position using my bag of slate stone. And then I rustled up some generic tombstones for the bog standard guardsmen that are buried here. Okay, so here we go. A fuel dump storage facility that also commemorates the troops who either died here in defense of the location, or more likely, accidental deaths that could have been prevented with hazard striping. And a fuel dump facility that can send extra fuel to its sister station and also acts as a pump station for some potable water and probably waste as well.